Hi, I'm Stephanie Parker, President, South Florida Condo HOA for FirstService Residential. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Brian Butler, President, Illinois at FirstService Residential as well. How are you doing today, Brian?
Great to be with you, Stephanie.
Awesome. How do we budget for the short term and the long term? It's those capital planning projects that I think are on everyone's mind. Can you share what you have seen in your market or across the industry when it comes to best practices or concerns around capital planning and budgeting?
It's a great question, Stephanie. In any given year, planning for both the expected and the unexpected is the biggest part of any board's job. It's especially true over the last several years when we've had higher inflation. We've seen some legislation around the country that's really mandating greater reserve funding, or especially just reserve studies and knowing what's coming. And so it really is critical that boards understand what's coming up, whether it be elevator repairs, exterior repairs, window repairs, all of those big ticket items, and planning appropriately for them. So we really recommend that boards take a look at their reserve studies, take a look at the funding assumptions underneath those reserve studies, and making sure that those are absolutely calibrated every year to what we expect.
As you know, one of the hot topics in the industry right now is rising insurance costs. My question for you is what strategy should boards have in place in order to address those unpredictable insurance costs in a volatile situation in our markets?
It's a great question, and honestly, insurance tends to be one of the more complicated areas of management when it comes to high-rise settings. There are some things within the board's control and some things outside the board's control. Especially the last couple of years, we've seen a lot outside of board's control.
Yeah.
So what happens in California or Florida, whether it's wildfires or hurricanes, any of the geopolitical issues, what happens somewhere happens everywhere when it comes to insurance. And so boards really need to work with experts in this area. Whether they have updated sprinklers or they have older wiring, there are all kinds of underwriting risks that affect pricing for boards. Claims history is also another important one. So to the degree that boards can plan and get ahead of potential losses, that's where we're seeing the very best outcomes, even when prices are rising for everyone.
Something else that's been on people's minds lately is technology and retrofitting projects. So my question for you is, how can communities and boards incorporate technology into their retrofitting projects in ways that will enhance their operations and the experience for their residents?
It's a great question. Whether a building is brand new or 100 years old, there is an opportunity for technology to improve the resident experience. Where we see this most often are on energy projects. So everyone knows the costs of energy continue to rise, and major metropolitan areas around the country are already starting to mandate greater efficiency even in existing high-rise structures. And so if there's a project coming up, whether it's replacement of boilers or pumps or even your elevators, there are more efficient opportunities now than have ever been in the marketplace before. It also helps to reduce the overall cost for residents. So although you might continue to have great elevator service, you have great lighting, using LEDs or more high efficient options can reduce budgetary pressures for our residents. Additionally, we're starting to see jurisdictions mandate electric vehicle infrastructure projects, especially for existing structures, as these EVs start to have greater adoption around the country. So take a look at in your marketplace. You may have subsidies through your utilities. There may be state programs that can help with some of these costs, especially if you're living in an existing structure that may not have that infrastructure already built in.
As you know, it's budgets, budgets, budgets for our communities. In South Florida, our boards are always asking, how do we benchmark our expenses and our budget against other communities in the area? How do we compare? And I'm sure you get questions like that in Illinois. And how do our boards do that? And what insights should they be looking for?
It's one of the most common questions we receive, right? Boards are managing their own communities. However, they're not alone in this journey. And so they're wanting to know, what are we paying for recycling or scavenger services? What are we paying for cable or electricity or insurance? It's natural to want to compare to your neighbors, especially when it comes to resale values. How do our assessments stack up against perhaps a building across the street or down the block? So it's really important to understand that you have the right partner that can get that data for you. And that's where FirstService Residential often has a critical mass of high-rise communities that they're managing in any of the major markets. And so we often are providing that data to our clients in ways that are helpful when it comes to decision making. And we've put together a great benchmark report that highlights a lot of those common expense categories around the country and where you're starting to see some trends. South Florida may have its own pressure increases when it comes to insurance or utilities or the like, and Chicago might have very different ones. So it's important to understand your specific market and how you can best maximize that data to make good decisions.
That's fantastic, and certainly I know our boards are going to really enjoy looking at it. Thank you, Brian. It's very clear that boards, communities, high-rises all have their own set of unique challenges. And boards really want to and need to understand and compare their community to their neighbors and understand what does that mean for budgeting and long-term capital planning and other important decisions that they make as board members. It's a balance, right? An ongoing balance between service delivery and resident experience, and then this fiscal responsibility that really sits on the shoulders of the high-rise boards. And we recognize it's no easy task. That's where Benchmark comes in. So we have this fantastic resource that boards can pick up, scroll on screen, and get some great insights that will help them with all of those things we've been talking about. Budgeting short-term, budgeting long-term for capital projects.
It's really a game changer.
Fantastic. It's been wonderful talking with you today.
Great to see you, Stephanie.